Light was an ugly, useless boy with no talent worth mentioning. One day, a legendary power awakened within him, a terrifying force capable of slaughtering anyone, no matter how powerful they were. Even so, Light chose to hide his abilities, pretending to be nothing more than an ordinary boy. Our story began with Light, that poor boy who possessed almost nothing in this world. He lived inside a humble house alongside his family of 5, and their living conditions were unbelievably miserable to the point that they could barely find enough food to satisfy their hunger day after day. Because of that, Light decided one day to change his family's life for the better. He chose to walk the path of adventurers and explore the dungeons, that dangerous and merciless road that only a handful of people dared to tread. He bid farewell to his family with love in his eyes and promised them that he would work hard and do everything he could to improve their lives. And so, he set out on his long journey until he finally reached the city after tremendous hardship. For he was not used to this noisy world after spending his entire life in the countryside inside a simple home. The boy began wandering through the streets of the city, while people kept bumping into him from every direction without even caring, and despite not doing anything wrong, he still apologized to them politely. After that, he headed directly toward the Adventurers Guild, the very place he had come for from the beginning. Light entered the guild, and the moment the receptionist saw him, she was shocked by how young he was. She could not stop wondering what could possibly drive a child whose face still carried traces of innocence to risk his life inside the most dangerous dungeons. After that, she asked him to fill out the registration form, but the surprising truth was that Light did not know how to read at all, because his father never possessed enough money to educate him and his siblings. At that moment, the receptionist realized the amount of suffering this boy had endured throughout his entire life, so she decided to help him personally. She gently asked him about the skills he possessed. In that instant, Light remembered his special skill known as unlimited gacha. He answered her with great confidence, saying that his ability was incredible and that there was no need to worry. The girl was surprised by his confidence and asked him to show her that skill, and indeed, he began using it. But the result was both shocking and embarrassing. Instead of pulling out something extraordinary, a useless bent fork appeared. He quickly tried again, but this time, a rotten apple appeared instead. Silence filled the place for several moments, while the receptionist felt an overwhelming sense of pity toward him. As for Light, he felt completely embarrassed and explained that his skill usually granted him much better items than that, but he had no idea why this was happening right now. The girl tried to comfort him, and in the end, she registered him as an F-rank adventurer, one of the lowest ranks inside the guild. After that, she asked him to choose a quest from the quest board hanging on the wall, but since he could not read, she decided to help him once again and gave him a simple mission that even a child his age could complete easily. At that moment, Light felt indescribably happy. He began working by cutting trees, removing rocks, and handling exhausting labor throughout the entire day. By nighttime, he had finally finished his work, and during his way back, he felt extremely happy because he had finally managed to earn a small amount of money that allowed him to rent a room in an inn and sleep there for the night. But while he was walking through the street, one of the people noticed the money he was carrying. The man quickly approached him and deliberately bumped into him before starting to shout at him as if Light were the one at fault. Even though Light had done nothing wrong, he still apologized politely. But that man did not care about his words at all. Instead, he forcefully snatched the money away from him while claiming it was merely punishment, then brutally kicked him and threw him onto the ground before leaving. Light remained sitting on the ground while staring bitterly at his miserable condition. He felt that all his effort during his very first day inside the city had disappeared for nothing. He had come to this place to work, earn money, and save his family from poverty, but reality was far crueler than he had ever imagined. During that moment, while he was drowning in despair, a hand suddenly stretched toward him. Light grabbed it hesitantly, but he quickly let go while apologizing, thinking she was a beggar asking for money, and he told her that he possessed nothing he could give her. But the girl immediately understood his feelings, before telling him that he was not alone, and that she would never abandon him until he became a member of her party. Light was shocked by her incredible kindness. While the girl began introducing him to her group, she treated him like a caring mother, which made him feel slightly suspicious, but Light had no reason to reject their help. After that, she introduced him to the members of her party and told him that her name was Sasha and that she belonged to the fairy race, while the rest of the party members belonged to different races, some from the dragon race, others from the goblin race, and more. Then she explained to him that their party was still missing one final member, and that member was Light himself. Their dream was to gather every race inside a single adventurer party so they could change the world and prevent any race from forcing its dominance over another. Sasha then asked Light if he was ready to join their party. For the first time since arriving in the city, Light felt genuine happiness because he felt that these people were different from the rest of the humans he had met, and because of that, he immediately agreed without any hesitation. After several days had passed, the party headed toward one of the most dangerous dungeons in the entire world, a dungeon ranked among the 10 deadliest dungeons ever known, and perhaps the most dangerous among them all. Suddenly, a gigantic 5-headed serpent appeared before them and charged directly toward Light, but Sasha intervened quickly and saved him at the final moment. After that, she shouted at him angrily and ordered him to remain at the rear of the formation because that place was extremely dangerous and he could lose his life at any moment. She also told him with obvious worry that she could not bear the thought of him getting hurt. Light silently apologized to her. Then the party continued advancing deeper inside the dungeon until they finally stopped. Light was serving them drinks with complete kindness, completely unaware of the betrayal hidden inside their hearts. Suddenly, Dragon coldly informed him that he was expelled from the party. At first, Light thought it was a joke, but he quickly realized everyone was serious. They explained that after confirming his summoning skill was useless, they no longer needed him. Their leaders only wanted to verify the truth behind his ability. Before Light could even understand what was happening, one of the members violently slapped him and told him with disgust that weak people like him made them sick. And since he already knew too much about them, there was no reason to keep him alive. Only then did Light realize the horrifying truth. They had planned to kill him from the beginning. He immediately tried escaping, but Jim fired an arrow straight into his leg, causing him to collapse onto the ground, unable to move. After that, one of them brutally kicked him while Light desperately crawled away in pain. Even in that moment, the only thing he wanted was to survive. Inside his heart, he screamed that he could not die now because his family depended entirely on him. Suddenly, while his hand touched the ground, a mysterious magic circle called Wolf Transfer appeared beneath him, and within a single instant, he vanished completely. Afterward, Light opened his eyes and found himself inside an empty cave. At first, he felt relieved, but he quickly realized that any monster inside the dungeon could kill him effortlessly. He sat there crying painfully, unable to understand why life kept destroying him every time he believed things were improving. He had trusted them sincerely, only to discover that to them, he was nothing more than worthless trash. But sadness was not the only thing inside his heart. There was anger as well. He refused to die in such a pathetic way. While drowning in those thoughts, he suddenly turned around and froze completely. A terrifying monster stood before him with a power rating exceeding 10,000 points. Simply looking at it was enough to fill anyone with fear. Even so, Light refused to surrender. He gambled on the final thing he possessed, his legendary gacha skill. The moment he activated it, the skill completely changed, and overwhelming energy filled the area. Then suddenly, a mysterious girl appeared before him. Within a single second, she sliced the monster apart so quickly that nothing remained of it. Afterward, she treated Light's wounds, then bowed respectfully before him. She introduced herself as his servant and declared that she would remain under his command for the rest of her life. Light was completely shocked. Only moments ago, he had been weak and pitiful, yet now someone possessing terrifying power stood before him with absolute loyalty. After that, she used an appraisal skill to check his true level, but she struggled greatly. She explained that his ability was not useless at all, but so terrifying that even she could not fully see his stats. Then she revealed that this could only mean two things. First, that Light possessed limitless power. Second, that he might stand on the same level as the rulers themselves. But Light could not believe her words. If his power was truly that incredible, then why had the people closest to him betrayed him? He trusted them and they tried to kill him. Even his survival still made no sense to him. He collapsed onto the ground and swore that he would never forgive them, told him that only 6 minutes would be enough for her to erase them from existence completely. But Light refused. He explained that everything happened because he was weak, and because of that, he decided to become the strongest with his own power. He wanted enough strength to protect himself and never be humiliated again. Maya accepted his decision and promised to support support him no matter what happened. At that moment, Light's true journey finally began. He started building his own kingdom while dedicating his life to training and revenge, and as the years passed, Light changed completely. Nearly 3 years later, he and Maya appeared inside a luxurious palace. By then, Light had become a terrifying and famous figure whose name spread everywhere. It turned out that during those years, he had summoned many powerful explorer cards, including Yiki the Monster Slayer, Aileen the Elemental Sorceress, Xena the legendary Palace Swordmaster, and many other ultra-rare characters. Afterward, they returned to the palace and met the guard Jack. Although Maya disliked the way Jack treated Light, Light himself considered Jack like a brother. Soon after, the two began training together, revealing just how terrifying Light's growth had become. All the hatred, resentment, and pain of betrayal inside him had transformed into overwhelming strength. Jack confidently told him to attack with everything he had, declaring that he did not earn the title of Super Swordmaster for nothing. Light calmly smiled before charging directly toward him. Elsewhere, Xena, the fiery palace swordmaster full of endless energy, headed toward Lord Light's room. There, Xena began feeling that something strange was happening, as if she absolutely needed to be by Light's side at this exact moment. Maya tried to reassure her and explained that Light was currently training with Jack while she herself was cleaning his room, and that the entire place was completely safe with no reason to worry. But Xena paid no attention to her words and decided to investigate the matter personally, and after she finished searching around, she apologized to Maya and left to continue her duties. After that, she headed toward the legendary monster tamer, who possessed a sharp personality and an extremely bad temper. The moment Xena approached her, the other girl immediately told her to stop talking and stay away from her. Xena tried offering her help, but the girl nervously refused while insisting that she did not need anything at all. Even so, Xena failed to understand the obvious tone of rejection and walked away happily with her usual simple and innocent attitude. But speaking of Light and Jack, the two of them were completely exhausted after a long and brutal training session. Jack told him that it was enough for today and suggested that they rest for a while, and indeed, the two of them headed together toward the tavern. While they were sitting there, Jack told Light that he had become something close to a terrifying killing machine, to the point that only a very small number of dungeon monsters could match him within the lower depths. But at the same time, he still had no idea how powerful Light had become above the surface, nor whether there truly existed someone capable of defeating him. As for Light, he told him that he completely understood what he meant, but that he would never allow himself to fall again, because surrender no longer existed inside his dictionary anymore. On the other side, Xena was standing in front of a weapon shop, her eyes fixed on a weapon she liked greatly and desperately wished to buy. During that moment, the sorceress Aileen appeared and spoke with her, before asking how she was doing. Xena reassured her and told her that everything was fine and that there was no danger around them at all. But the truth was completely different, because only a short while ago she had been playing around inside Lord Light's throne room and accidentally broke one of the rare golden statues, and despite how impossible it sounded, her strength was overwhelmingly terrifying, for she was one of the ultra-rare card holders with a 4/9 classification. Yet despite her frightening power, she still behaved with incredible innocence and recklessness. Returning to Light, he was gathered together with the dangerous trio inside one of the dungeons. Suddenly, the terrifying hellhound appeared before them. Light trembled for a moment the instant he saw it, because that monster brought back every painful memory of betrayal and suffering he had endured in the past. But the hellhound itself became frightened the moment it saw the girls' cold gazes and heard their chilling words, instantly realizing that its end had already arrived. Even so, Light did not kill it. Instead, he simply tamed it. And just like that, the monster that had once nearly ended his life became a pet that obediently followed his commands. Afterward, Light looked toward the girls and told them that the time had finally come. The time for revenge had arrived. After many long years of suffering, he was finally ready to take revenge against everyone who had betrayed him in the past. Elsewhere, Jaro appeared while walking together with two of his followers, who harmed people mercilessly. Everyone around them was terrified of them, and during their walk, they saw a small child searching through garbage for something to eat. But Jaro approached him, beat him, humiliated him, then left, exactly the same way he once treated Light in the past. After that, he entered the tavern while his friends excessively praised him in an irritating manner. They kept glorifying him and speaking about his strength as though he were an undefeatable legend, and because of his overwhelming arrogance, he decided to pay for everyone's food as a reward for their praise. And indeed, they sat down, eating and drinking. During that time, one of them asked him about the mission that happened 3 years ago, the Union of Races mission. Then he asked him to explain what happened there and how he failed, despite his strength, to protect that little child who had been with them. And of course, he meant Light. But that bastard immediately avoided the topic and claimed that the masters had forbidden them from speaking about what happened that day. Even though he acted as if he forgot everything, the truth was completely different. Deep inside, he wished he had killed Light himself and enjoyed torturing him until the very end. Light was the first victim to ever escape from his hands, despite the countless innocents he had already killed. After that, Jaro convinced himself that Light died long ago, and that thinking about him now was meaningless. But he had no idea that his own end was already approaching. At that moment, Maya suddenly appeared before him. She pretended to be a weak girl and asked him about her master, Light. She explained that Light disappeared 3 years ago, and that she searched everywhere for him until hearing that Jaro was the last person who saw him alive. Then she begged him to guide her to the place where Light supposedly died. Jaro did not trust her completely at first, but the moment she offered him 3 kilograms of gold, he instantly accepted. Blinded by greed, he agreed to escort her to the Abyss dungeon, completely unaware that he was walking toward his own death. During the trip, Maya continued acting helpless while Jaro secretly planned to abandon her there and torture her afterward. But he had no idea that she could kill him effortlessly. After arriving, Jaro pointed toward the area and claimed that monsters attacked them from every direction and tore Light apart so badly that even he could not save him. At that moment, Maya sat on the ground and began crying. Meanwhile, Jaro kept lying and pretending to feel sorry for him. But suddenly, Maya's voice completely changed. She began describing everything that happened that day in horrifying detail. She explained how Light trusted them, only for them to betray him. They kicked him, shot an arrow through his leg, and enjoyed watching the pain in his eyes. Jaro instantly froze and nervously stepped backward while asking who she really was and how she knew secrets that only the Union of Races and a few leaders knew. At that very moment, Maya's rage exploded. A terrifying aura covered the entire area, and Jaro's men froze in overwhelming fear after realizing that the weak girl from earlier possessed catastrophic power. The moment Jaro looked into her eyes, he realized that his end had finally arrived. But before Maya could move, Light suddenly appeared. He calmly stopped her and told her not to be selfish because Jaro belonged to him alone. Jaro froze in shock the instant he saw him. As for Light, he simply laughed while telling him that he was indeed still alive. He even mockingly asked whether Jaro still liked the tea he used to prepare for him in the past. Jaro burst into hysterical laughter, unable to understand how Light survived or why such a terrifying maid followed him. Even so, he quickly tried to regain confidence and reminded Light that they were still only 2 people, while he had an entire army behind him. At that moment, 2 of his men rushed directly toward Light, but Maya instantly moved and cut off both of their heads without hesitation. Then she coldly declared that anyone who wished to harm her master would first have to get past her, and that was impossible. Afterward, Light ordered Maya to handle the others while he personally dealt with Jaro. Meanwhile, Jaro tried calming his men by reminding them that Light used to be weak, but Light calmly smiled and asked whether Jaro had ever considered that the true weakling might actually be himself. Jaro angrily declared that he belonged to the monster race, the superior race at the top of the food chain, but Light burst into laughter and mocked him for still carrying the same foolish arrogance from the past. At that moment, Jaro charged together with his men using all their strength, but Light crushed them effortlessly. A punch to the right, a strike to the left, and everyone who approached him instantly collapsed. Within moments, Jaro was lying on the ground, writhing in unbearable pain, while Light coldly mocked him for becoming exhausted before the real battle had even begun. Suddenly, Jaro pulled out a magical crystal that he had been carefully hiding. That was his trump card, the weapon he had kept hidden this entire time, and he never once imagined that he would be forced to use it against such a small number of enemies. In the very next moment, he summoned that majestic monster. Its name was Deep, the legendary dungeon monster, a level 500 creature created solely for destruction and crushing its enemies. But the moment Light saw it, he burst into hysterical laughter. He looked at it with intense mockery before saying that a level 500 monster looked unbelievably weak in his eyes. As for Jaro, he thought that Light had completely lost his mind from overwhelming fear. He ordered him to kneel and beg for his life, and perhaps then he might consider sparing him. But Light remained standing before him with complete calmness and simply told him to bring out everything he had without hesitation. In a single instant, the legendary labyrinth monster unleashed a terrifying laser whose temperature reached 3,600 degrees. The entire area exploded, and everyone believed that Light had finally perished. But the moment the dust disappeared, Light appeared standing there completely unharmed. He was not affected in the slightest. Then he looked at Jaro with contempt and asked him whether this was truly all he had after creating all that noise. As for Jaro, he could not believe what he was witnessing. The legendary labyrinth monster was capable of tearing apart its enemies within moments, and yet it could not even scratch Light. But Light did not stop mocking him and told him that he still had not seen the true labyrinth monster yet. Then he pulled out a card from his pocket and summoned the legendary wolf, Fenrir, and within only a single moment, the wolf destroyed the monster with nothing more than a single breath. Shock filled the entire area. That was not an ordinary wolf, it was Fenrir, the true legendary wolf possessing catastrophic power. At that moment, Jaro realized that his end had become incredibly close. He also understood that Light had been capable of killing all of them from the very beginning, but he never intended to end things easily. Instead, he wanted them to experience the same pain, terror, and despair that he had once endured in the past, but in a far worse form. Back then, the difference between him and them had been like the difference between an ant and an elephant. But now, the entire situation had completely reversed in Light's favor. He had spent all those years developing himself for this exact moment, the moment to destroy the traitors. After that, Jaro collapsed onto the ground and began begging for mercy, and he confessed everything. He told him that they did not originally intend to kill him, but the higher authorities ordered them to search for one of the masters. At first, they thought that Light might be one of them because of his strange abilities, but after the months they spent with him, they became convinced that he was a completely useless person, and at that point, the order to eliminate him was given. Afterward, Light asked him why the governments of the world were searching for the masters, but Jaro admitted that he knew nothing about it. During that moment, the rest of his followers attempted to lie and claimed that they possessed a great deal of information about the masters, believing that they could deceive him. But Maya immediately exposed their lies using her terrifying ability, Eye of Truth, then killed all of them mercilessly. Jaro's fear continued increasing more and more. After that, Light asked him a direct question. Who was stronger, him or all the surface dwellers combined? Jaro answered with obvious fear that Light was unbelievably strong, but he was still only one person, while numbers would always overcome courage. But Light noticed the terror filling his face, and even the smell of fear that had started spreading from him. Then he smiled mockingly and told him that neither the sight nor the smell was pleasant at all. After that, Light used the gacha to transport them elsewhere. In the next instant, they appeared inside his personal castle. Jaro froze in shock before the majestic sight surrounding him. He was completely stunned by the castle's grandeur and by Light's overwhelming presence, which had become completely different from the person he once knew. At that moment, a terrifying voice echoed through the castle, announcing that Jaro now stood before the King of Darkness. Then Light ordered his followers to reveal their levels before Jaro, and in that instant, Jaro felt a fear unlike anything he had ever experienced before. Every person inside that castle possessed enough power to destroy the world itself. Light repeated the same question once again. Who was stronger, him or all the surface dwellers combined? But Jaro could no longer think properly. He felt as if his breathing had stopped while panic consumed his mind. They had created a true monster, a monster whose rage would not calm until the world drowned in destruction. At that moment, Light stood among his followers and declared his desire to uncover the complete truth behind everything happening in this world. He wanted to know what truly existed behind the curtain, and he confirmed that he was prepared to abandon his humanity and morals completely in order to reach that truth. Because in his eyes, only the truth could create equal justice for everyone. Then he announced the beginning of his journey to conquer the world, a journey that would rise from the depths of the abyss to the surface itself, from darkness toward light, and from despair toward tragedy. As time passed, Light finally returned to see his family after more than 3 years. But the moment he arrived, he was completely shocked. His home had been destroyed, and the entire village was reduced to ruins. Light shattered internally in a way no one could imagine. He desperately searched for any trace of his family, but found nothing. Even so, he realized they were still alive somewhere in this world. During that moment, his assistants began arguing, but Light immediately stopped them and explained that starting a war now would be foolish. Their goal was to first understand the military strength of every nation before making a move. He also revealed that he suspected his village had been destroyed because people believed he might be a maestro, one of the masters of this world. Because of that, he decided to travel across the world and uncover the complete truth behind the masters and whether they truly deserved all that bloodshed and destruction. And if the truth proved to be evil, then he would turn this world into a real hell. He openly declared that he would take revenge no matter what happened. At that moment, the Golden Warrior accompanying him asked him to hide his identity. So Light covered his face with a tarot mask and headed toward his first destination, the city of Dagas. When his assistant asked what he planned to do there, Light calmly answered that the old Light had died long ago on the surface. Now, he was Lord Dark. The girl apologized immediately while Light explained his new plan. He intended to register at the Adventurers Guild under the name Dark. Then he would complete countless quests, raise his rank higher and higher, and eventually reach the people standing at the top of the nations. In other words, he intended to reveal himself to the world so that the world itself would begin searching for him. And so, they headed toward Dagas. To avoid suspicion, they landed inside the nearby forest so they could enter the city naturally through the gates. They wanted to arrive peacefully without causing trouble. But nearby, a group of bandits was surrounding a helpless man and trying to kill his little daughter. The man desperately begged for mercy, but the bandits refused to stop. At that moment, the Golden Knight appeared in his shining armor. The bandits mocked him and demanded to search him, but they had no idea they were standing before one of the followers of the King of Destruction himself. Within moments, they were completely slaughtered. The man thanked them deeply for saving his daughter. Afterward, he offered to guide them to the city of Dagas. They accepted and traveled together with him. During the journey, Light explained that he wanted to register at the guild and explore the dungeons. The man told him he had come to the perfect place, because Dagas possessed one of the largest dungeons in the world, attracting adventurers from every race. But only 2 races were forbidden from entering: the Dark Elves and the Ordinary Elves. Light and his companions quietly nodded. After arriving at the city gates, they officially registered themselves at the Adventurers Guild. But the receptionist was not convinced by them at all, especially since they were only F-rank adventurers. Nomo insisted that they deserved an S or even S+ rank, but the receptionist firmly explained that the rules applied equally to everyone. At that moment, Light stepped in and calmed the situation. Afterward, they met the nobleman who owned the inn. They rented the entire upper floor for a month under one condition: nobody was allowed near their floor. The owner immediately agreed. Then Light activated 3 spells: isolation, concealment, and distortion, ensuring nobody could spy on them. After discussing their plans, they rested for the night before heading toward the dungeon the next morning. But the line outside was enormous. Nomo complained that they should enter first because of their strength, but Golden mocked her immediately. During that moment, 2 mysterious young men tried taking the places of several children waiting in line. The children wanted to object, but the 2 looked extremely dangerous. Light stepped forward and calmly told them that the children had waited a long time and deserved their places. One of the men nearly attacked him in anger, but his companions stopped him, and eventually the 2 apologized before moving to the back of the line. Afterward, the children happily spoke with Light's group and asked about their ranks. Finally, it became their turn to enter. Light and his party stepped inside the dungeon, and the place looked incredible. At that moment, Light activated 3 gacha cards. One revealed the path toward the next floor, another granted concealment, and the third allowed flight. Elsewhere, the same 2 mysterious men appeared again. The amber-haired youth was slaughtering monsters furiously while shouting that he was the strongest among the elves and one of the greatest warriors in the elf kingdom. His name was Kito. Afterward, he asked his companion, the dark elf Dante, a genius scientist, to create an elixir capable of breaking the supreme limit of the elf races. Kito had already reached level 1500, an absolutely terrifying level, and if the elixir succeeded, it would become a disaster for the entire world. Dante calmly replied that he only needed humans for his experiments, and promised he would complete the elixir no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Light, Nomo, and Golden successfully defeated the monsters on the 3rd floor and collected the crystals and jewels needed as proof for the guild. On their way back, they encountered a group of young adventurers fighting monsters with excellent teamwork, especially the sorceress supporting them from the rear. Light warned them not to lower their guard after battle because a serpent behind them had almost attacked them. The children thanked him sincerely, but suddenly, Light sensed something strange. Hundreds of dark forest wolves were rushing toward them at terrifying speed. The children panicked, but the true danger was not the wolves. It was the horrifying insect that had appeared from the lower floors of the dungeon, a monster that should never have existed there. The children froze in fear, but Light calmly assured them everything was under control. The gigantic insect charged toward them, and Golden immediately rushed forward to fight it. Even he quickly realized that this monster was far stronger than expected. During the battle, Light used explosion magic, but the insect easily deflected the attack and redirected it back at him. Meanwhile, the little sorceress among the children became shocked by Light's use of silent casting, a rare technique that allowed him to cast magic without chanting. Afterward, Golden finally revealed his true strength and shattered the insect's claws and outer shell. At the same time, Light continuously fired flaming arrows at it, but suddenly, the insect leaped into the sky and entered high-speed attack mode. Even so, Light refused to let it escape, so he ordered his assistant to eliminate it immediately. The girl moved at unbelievable speed and sliced the gigantic insect apart in a single instant. But Golden became furious because they had wanted to keep the monster's body intact so they could sell it later. Nomo quickly apologized while Light calmly ended the argument. Afterward, they obtained the rare monster jewel, and the children became fully convinced that Light's party belonged to one of the famous S-rank adventurer parties. But Light quickly shattered their expectations and told them that they were not famous at all, merely weak F-rank adventurers. The children froze in disbelief, unable to understand how people with such strength could belong to such a low rank. Afterward, the children invited them to share a meal together, and Light accepted. During the conversation, they spoke about magic and its different forms, and it became clear that Mai possessed remarkable knowledge and talent in magic. Meanwhile, Light invented stories so nobody would suspect his true strength. He claimed that his family had suffered a terrible attack, his mother had died, and his father received severe burns. Because of that, they were traveling across the world searching for a cure. Naturally, the children completely believed him. Elsewhere, the elves and dark elves had already begun carrying out their plan. Dante informed Kaido that everything was prepared and that only one ingredient remained: humans. They had finally succeeded in creating the elixir, and that alone made the situation more dangerous than ever. The next morning, Light went to sell the monster jewels and crystals they had collected. The guild receptionist was shocked by the enormous amount he brought. After preparing the payment, they received an excellent reward. Soon the name of their party spread rapidly throughout the city, and the name Black became known everywhere. Light was pleased with that, because fame had always been part of his plan. Afterward, they met two adventurers named Sufyan and Gilbert. At first, Nomo thought they wanted trouble, but the two quickly assured them they came peacefully. Soon after, everyone headed toward the dungeon together and descended toward the 5th floor. Along the way, they encountered the children's party again. Mai gave Light ointment for burns, while he gifted her a magical item called the Wish Fulfillment Picture. Mai became extremely happy before the children finally left. Afterward, Light and his companions reached the 5th floor, where the atmosphere was freezing cold. Because of that, Light left Nomo and Golden to handle things while he returned to rest inside the castle. There, he began assigning missions to the girls. As for Nazuna, he avoided giving her anything complicated because he knew she was terrible at tasks requiring thought. So he simply ordered her to patrol the castle and make sure everything was fine. Meanwhile, back inside the dungeon, Sufyan and Gilbert stood guard while the others slept. But when Sufyan returned after stepping outside, he discovered a horrifying scene. The elves and dark elves had appeared, and every one of his companions had already been killed. Sufyan immediately tried escaping, but Dante stopped him before he could get far. At that moment, Kaito angrily scolded Dante because he only wanted humans for experiments, not dead bodies. But Dante coldly replied that the humans irritated him, so he killed them. Then he casually added that there were plenty of humans inside the dungeon anyway. It became obvious that the two were planning something terrifying. The next day, Light returned to the guild with his companions. There, Nomo started arguing with the receptionist because of how slowly they were being promoted. Despite completing countless quests over the past 2 weeks, they had only received one promotion. The receptionist explained that those were simply the rules. However, she suggested another way to rank up quickly. Many humans were mysteriously being murdered inside the dungeon, and even adventurers sent to investigate had disappeared as well. Light immediately realized this mission would be the perfect chance for a fast promotion, so he accepted it at once. Afterward, they returned to the hotel while discussing how to deal with the human killer known as Stain. But suddenly a strange gate appeared out of nowhere, and in the next moment Mai emerged from it heavily injured. Light quickly healed her, then used his power to enter her memories and discover what happened. It turned out that while the children were leaving the dungeon, they encountered Dante and Kaito. At first, the children believed the two were kind people, so they told them everything they knew about the human killer. The children begged them to leave as quickly as possible, but Kaito smiled mockingly and revealed the truth himself. He told them that he was the one deciding how many humans would die every single day. At that moment, the children finally understood the horrifying truth. As for Dante, he admitted that he never expected those idiots to discover the truth so quickly. And in that instant, Kaito coldly declared that he was the true human killer and that he would eliminate all of them right now. Everyone froze from overwhelming shock, but the boys told Mai to run away immediately, while they would hold him back no matter the cost. Kaito laughed with intense mockery, then attacked them directly. Within mere moments, he managed to kill the first one with terrifying ease. As for the other two, they charged toward him with everything they had, but he inflicted deep wounds upon them and threw them beneath his feet. At that moment, Dante became angry at him and told him that he wanted them alive for experiments. As for the children, they continued screaming at Mai to run away and seek help from anyone capable of saving them. But Mai was completely paralyzed from overwhelming fear and could not even move. The two boys attempted to stand up again and attack Kaito, but this time he completely ignored Dante's words and killed them in cold blood. Dante shouted at him furiously, but Kaito replied indifferently that he had left him one girl alive, and that should be enough for him. As for Mai, she had reached the peak of terror. Kaito slowly approached her and told her that her turn had finally come. At that moment, her brother painfully stood up and began screaming at her to run away. But instead of becoming annoyed, Dante grew extremely excited. He saw incredible talent within that boy, talent that could help him greatly in his research. During that moment, the boy remembered Golden's words when he defeated the mantis insect, then attempted to imitate his fighting style. And surprisingly, he actually managed to knock Kaito onto the ground for a brief moment. The boy smiled with overwhelming happiness, while Kaito's rage exploded completely. His face had been injured by a human. Even Dante tried stopping him, but Kaito had completely lost control and attacked violently. After that, he rushed toward Mai at terrifying speed and completely cornered her. She was only a single moment away from death. At that moment, Mai wished she could tell Lord Light everything that had happened. Even so, she decided to resist until the very end. She attacked him with ice magic, but the attack was completely ineffective because Kaito was not merely an ordinary fighter, he was a true legendary monster. Mai tried to escape, but he struck her leg and knocked her onto the ground. Even so, she began screaming at him and telling him that he was not a legendary hero as he believed himself to be, but merely a worthless and despicable murderer. At that moment, Kaito remembered his past, and his anger exploded completely. He charged toward her with brutal savagery to kill her personally, but at the very last moment, the wish bracelet that Light had given her began glowing brightly. Suddenly, Mai was transferred directly to Light's location. Her final wish had been to tell him everything that happened. As for Light, he reached the peak of fury after seeing her condition, and in the very next moment, he ordered his followers to eliminate that trash immediately, while he himself began treating Mai's brother because his soul had not disappeared yet. Kaito returned to Dante, and the two realized that the little girl had escaped. At that moment, panic appeared on Kaito's face. It was only a matter of time before the Elf Kingdom learned the truth and came to reclaim the legendary sword. But before Kaito could think further, Light suddenly appeared before him. Kaito froze in terror the moment he saw him. Meanwhile, Light ordered Nomo and Golden not to interfere no matter what happened. The instant Kaito heard that, he charged toward Light with all his power, but he quickly realized he was facing a true monster. Light dodged every attack effortlessly while mocking him and asking if this was truly the limit of his strength. Then, in a single moment, Light struck him with a devastating blow that slammed him violently into the ground. Afterward, he coldly mocked Kaito, saying that someone who called himself a legendary hero should at least put up a better fight. Kaido's rage exploded completely. He drew the legendary sword and unleashed dozens of spells every second at terrifying speed, but Light avoided everything with unbelievable ease while the forest around them burned from the power of the attacks. At one point, Kaido suddenly appeared behind Light and tried to kill him, only to discover that Light blocked the attack effortlessly. Kaido slowly began losing his sanity. He could not believe someone could overpower the legendary swordsman so easily. Meanwhile, Light admitted that he was not even fighting seriously. He was merely playing with him. Kaido attacked once again with everything he had, but Light shocked everyone by perfectly copying Kaido's own techniques with even greater mastery. No matter what Kaido did, he could not leave even a scratch on him. At that moment, Kaido finally realized he was facing a monster beyond understanding. Even so, his pride refused to let him retreat. He burst into hysterical laughter and declared that he would never lose while wielding the legendary Lord's sword. Light suddenly stopped. Kaido proudly declared blood flowed through his veins and that people called him the Vice. At that moment, the truth slowly became clearer to Light. Meanwhile, Dante finally stepped forward. He explained that he disliked fighting because he was a scientist, then revealed his horrifying masterpiece. Grotesque monsters appeared instantly. The moment Light saw them, he remembered Sufjan and the others. Dante had been performing hybrid experiments between races. At first, Golden and Nomo easily destroyed the monsters, but Dante warned them not to celebrate too early, and indeed the monsters regenerated immediately. At first, they overwhelmed the battle, but that did not last long. Light's followers finally unleashed their true power, releasing scorching flames that melted the monsters completely and stopped their regeneration forever. Dante was utterly shocked. Afterward, he personally attacked, but Nomo stopped him effortlessly. As for Light and Kaido, there had never been any comparison between them from the start. Light mockingly asked whether this was truly the level of the maestro's heir. The moment Kaito remembered what happened to Mai, his rage exploded again. He screamed that humans were inferior beings unworthy of looking down on him. At that instant, the true power of Excalibur erupted. Kaito charged forward with terrifying speed like an unstoppable monster. Even Light's followers were astonished by the sword's overwhelming power. But despite that, Light still dodged every attack effortlessly, as though he could predict every movement before it happened. Kaido grew more furious and increased the speed of his attacks repeatedly, but nothing changed. Light had completely destroyed him mentally. Finally, in desperation, Kaido demanded that Light stop moving so he could kill him, but Light mockingly agreed. Kaido unleashed his strongest attack immediately, yet Light did not move even slightly. Then he coldly told him to keep trying, until he understood how weak he truly was. Kaido attacked with every ounce of strength he had left, but Light calmly declared that even if the battle continued until next year, Kaido still would not be able to wound him. And in the next instant, Light shattered Excalibur completely and struck Kaido with a devastating blow that sent him flying 50 meters away. At that moment, Kaido realized that his end had truly arrived. He began begging Light for mercy, trying to survive by any possible means, but Light had no intention of forgiving him after everything he had done. He ordered him to pick up his weapon and stand up to fight once again. Then he began mocking him coldly, asking if this was not the duty of a legendary hero. Was not a true hero supposed to keep fighting until the very end, no matter the wounds and pain? After that, Light removed his mask and stepped closer to him, while Kaido trembled from overwhelming terror. Suddenly, Kaido turned around and fled with all the speed he possessed, but he never realized that Light would never allow him to escape. Light unleashed an attack that completely burned his leg, causing him to collapse onto the ground, screaming in agony. As for the rest of his followers, they were trembling before Light like terrified animals. Kaido began apologizing and begging after finally understanding the scale of the catastrophe he had caused. But Light regretted only one thing: not killing him from the very beginning. If he had done that, things would never have reached this point. After that, he transported all of them to the Abyss Castle, and they reached the peak of terror from what they witnessed there. Each one immediately began throwing accusations at the others while trying to save himself. One claimed that Kaito planned everything, while another insisted he was nothing more than a victim. But Light no longer cared about any excuses. They begged him one final time to spare them, but he completely refused, and he confirmed that they would experience the exact same pain they forced him to endure in the past, and he would not even grant them death until his hatred toward them was fully satisfied. Light had become someone who showed mercy to no one standing in his path. Then he mockingly told them that they were like dogs that only barked when they possessed power. After that, he left them and returned to check on Mai. The girl finally woke up, so he informed her that he managed to heal her brother, but her other two companions had already died. Mai burst into tears from overwhelming sadness, but that was the cruel truth of life. Not every beginning happens the way we desire, and not every ending arrives the way we expect. During that time, Light informed the guild receptionist about the truth behind the human killer, and that the people responsible were two elves. The receptionist became extremely happy after realizing that humans would no longer continue dying inside the dungeon, and because of that mission, Light's rank rose to rank C. As for Mai and her brother, their condition gradually began improving, and they decided to abandon the life of adventurers completely. On the other side, Light returned to the abyss once again. There, Maya and the girls began presenting all the information they obtained from Kaido and Dante, and through the investigation, they discovered that the existence of only one maestro might be enough to destroy the entire world. Light asked them for more information, but it turned out that Kaido, as the grandson of the maestro, carried a forbidden spell protecting his memories and preventing anyone from stealing them, and after all the torture he and Dante endured, the two ended up in a pitiful condition. At that moment, Light decided to end their suffering at last. He summoned the Hell Beast in a single instant, and it eliminated both of them immediately without the slightest mercy. And just like that, Light finally managed to take revenge on the first three of his enemies. After that, they began discussing their plan to take revenge on the third member, Sasha, but the sorceress Island asked Light to leave Sasha to her, so Light agreed and handed the mission over to her completely. Elsewhere, inside the Elf Kingdom, Sasha was preparing for her wedding ceremony. She was speaking with her maid while they prepared everything related to the celebration. During that moment, her maid continuously spoke about humans with complete contempt. Suddenly, the fruits and vegetables carried by the workers fell onto the ground. Sasha looked at them with disgust and told her maid that humans were useless even in the simplest tasks. But while looking out from the carriage window, she suddenly froze in shock. She had seen Light. Her eyes widened in terror, and she could not believe what she was seeing. She immediately jumped out of the carriage, then started running after him at full speed. She was frightened and shocked at the same time while constantly repeating to herself that it was impossible. There was no way that could be the Light she once knew. That miserable little boy had died long ago. Even so, she continued chasing after him through the streets until she followed him into that dead-end alley. Sasha looked around nervously, then started convincing herself that she was only imagining things and that the exhaustion from the wedding preparations was affecting her mind. But the moment she turned behind her, she froze in shock. Light had left a message written on the wall, and its contents were terrifyingly clear. "I will be waiting for you at the tower. My dear Sasha, signed, the King of Darkness, Light." At that moment, Sasha understood the entire truth. She let out a scream that echoed through the entire area. Her maid immediately rushed toward her, unable to understand what was happening. She tried calming her down and asking what happened, but Sasha was trembling in fear while insisting that Light had returned and that he would destroy everything. Then she admitted that his supposed death was the reason behind her current life and that she would never allow him to destroy everything she achieved no matter what happened. During that time, Light and Island were watching her from the top of a nearby building. Island smiled calmly and told Light not to worry because she would make Sasha understand who the real Light truly was, and she assured him that she would fill her heart with terror and make her regret everything she had done. Island was completely serious. Elsewhere, the White Knights, the order Kaido belonged to, were brutally torturing a human. The man was tied to a tree while they stabbed him repeatedly without mercy. During that moment, one of the knights began talking about what happened inside the labyrinth because of Kaito. As for the commander, he showed complete disgust toward the idea that an elf knight had lost against a human. In his eyes, even if that human was weak and worthless, losing to him was still an unforgivable humiliation. He even declared that if he personally found Kaito, he would kill him immediately. And while speaking, they continued driving knives into the poor man's body while he screamed in agony. At that moment, Heart, the knight known for his countless relationships with women, shouted at them to silence him. But the commander suddenly exploded with rage. A terrifying aura swept across the entire area. Then he crushed the poor man's head in a single instant. His power was overwhelmingly monstrous, and he seemed to stand on an entirely different level from Kaido. But no matter how powerful they were, in Light's eyes they were nothing more than future targets. Time passed quickly, and by evening Sasha was trying to sleep while drowning in fear and anxiety. Suddenly, suddenly, a gigantic stone tower appeared in the middle of the forest directly before her, and from there, the true journey of revenge finally began. On the following morning, a merchant was traveling through the city with his carriage to transport goods. But those goods were actually a group of children. While moving along the road, one of the terrifying abyss monsters suddenly appeared. Without hesitation, the man fled and abandoned the restrained children inside the carriage alone. Time passed while they remained completely helpless. After that, a royal decree was issued ordering an investigation into the mysterious tower and the dangerous monsters that recently appeared. And the ones assigned to that mission were the White Knights, which was exactly what Light wanted from the very beginning. During that time, Mohsen and Hussein appeared and intentionally began provoking the knights. Dark tried solving the situation calmly at first, but when that failed, he decided to respond with force. Meanwhile, in the forest, a group of cowards was taking a human girl with them so they could use her as bait if they encountered danger. But before they could do anything, a legendary monster suddenly appeared behind one of them and devoured his head completely. Then, the second man met the same fate immediately afterward. As for the little girl, she froze from terror, but she was shocked to realize that the monster did not harm her at all. After that, a group of girls appeared and rescued her. The girls began treating her wounds, then spoke with Uki and informed her that the mission succeeded and that the human child was now safe. Uki praised them, while Aileen continued working seriously to carry out Lord Light's plan. And while the girls spoke about his plan, their terrifying auras filled the entire area. At the same time, Queen Valeria had gathered the knights and advisors to discuss a real solution for everything happening, and the advisor suggested sending the White Knights immediately, because they were the strongest force the kingdom possessed. But they spent the entire journey joking and arguing until they finally arrived before the majestic tower, where Aileen and Uki were waiting to welcome them. Aileen explained the details of the place and revealed the terrifying monster she had brought from the abyss to guard the tower. Light was visibly surprised because that single pet was powerful enough to destroy several cities without receiving a scratch. But Aileen calmly reminded him that a king should never remain beneath others, then transported him directly to the top of the tower, where the rest of the followers bowed before him and reviewed the final revenge plan against Sasha. The plan itself was simple yet horrifying. Since Sasha's wedding would happen within days, they intended to wait until everyone gathered together, then transform the ceremony into a complete catastrophe. Aileen also revealed that the tower itself had been created to lure the White Knights into a trap while weakening the kingdom at the same time. After hearing the plan, Light ordered everyone to prepare themselves. Meanwhile, Sasha returned to the kingdom and informed the queen and the White Knights about the mysterious tower hidden deep within the forest. She explained that terrifying monsters guarded the place and that an ancient dragon had made the tower its lair. Alberto immediately decided that they would destroy the tower the following morning, and indeed the White Knights headed toward the forest alongside Sasha. Once they reached the tower, everyone was shocked by its enormous size and overwhelming aura. Suddenly, the gates opened and several monsters charged toward them, but the knights eliminated them quickly before entering the tower itself. However, the moment they advanced deeper inside, a spatial spell activated beneath their feet and instantly separated them into different areas. That had been Light's plan from the very beginning. As the real battle started, Kaya and Nia found themselves facing Mira and Ice Hot. At first, the two elf knights underestimated them completely, but the fight quickly turned into a nightmare. Their endless attacks and spells were effortlessly dodged, and even after they managed to sever Mira's arm, it regenerated before their eyes instantly. The twins finally realized that the two girls had only been playing with them the entire time. Then Mira and Ice Hot raised the temperature of the battlefield to a terrifying level. The twins desperately tried using ice magic to survive, but every spell melted instantly. Their bodies slowly burned, while Aileen's magic kept them alive for interrogation later. Elsewhere inside the tower, Hart encountered Suzy. Captivated by her beauty, he shamelessly tried flirting with her even during battle. But Suzy ignored him completely and effortlessly blocked his invisible arrows. Hart was shocked after realizing she could see through all his attacks, because she was none other than the legendary Reaper Suzy, one of the 4/7 Explorer card holders whose power surpassed imagination itself. Sasha continued speaking with overwhelming contempt, declaring that humans were nothing more than filthy trash. Then she told Light to calm down a little, because this time she had prepared a special surprise to guarantee his death once and for all. In the very next moment, she pulled out a strange magical flute and began playing it. Suddenly, 3 massive magic circles appeared throughout the area. Light froze in shock because he had never seen such a legendary weapon before. Then, without any warning, 3 warriors were summoned, each possessing power equal to an entire army, and the battle immediately began. The first warrior charged toward Light with a devastating punch, but Light dodged it with unbelievable agility. He tried counterattacking instantly, but the second warrior suddenly intervened, using his steel shield to protect his companion. Light clashed with him for a short time before finally shattering both his shield and right arm completely. But before he could finish him off, the third warrior stepped in and instantly restored both the shield and spear. At that moment, Light realized the terrifying truth. Those 3 fought like a single body. One specialized in attack, the second in defense, and the third in healing and support. And the only way to defeat them was to destroy them with overwhelming speed before they could heal one another again. At that point, Light decided to reveal part of his true power. The moment Sasha felt his aura, terror filled her heart. But Luciel tried calming her down, insisting that reaching such a level was impossible, and that what they were seeing had to be another illusion similar to the fake burns Light once used on his face. And eventually, Sasha forced herself to believe those words. As for Light, he no longer cared about anything they said. He activated one of his strongest spells and completely restrained both the attacker and defender, then isolated the healer and destroyed her entirely. But Sasha refused to stop. She played the flute once again, and the female warrior immediately returned to life. And there, Light discovered the horrifying truth. Sasha could continuously summon those warriors every time they died. Suddenly, Light appeared directly before her and was about to destroy the magical flute itself, but Luciel intervened at the last second and stopped him. Then he shouted furiously and ordered him to stay away from Sasha. In the next moment, Light's own attack was reflected back at him with even greater force, and that was not all. Luciel amplified the abilities of both the attacker and defender 6-fold at once. Meanwhile, Sasha began mocking Light, while attacks rained down on him from every direction. Even Uki and Aelin started becoming worried for him. The two nearly intervened to help, but Light's desire to take revenge personally stopped them from moving. During all of that, Sasha continued insulting him, insisting that he was nothing more than an insect compared to them. But at that moment, Light suddenly burst into terrifying laughter. Then he activated a completely new ability, Eternal Prison of Darkness. Uki and Aelin froze in shock and immediately tried stopping him before the spell could fully activate, but it was already too late. The ability had been completed, and at that moment, the dark light appeared. A horrifying black aura swallowed the entire area and filled everyone's hearts with fear. Nobody could believe what they were witnessing. Light had transformed into a terrifying dark being that no longer resembled a human at all. One of the warriors charged toward him in an attempt to stop him, but Light destroyed him with overwhelming ease. As for Luciel, complete shock covered his face. Sasha desperately tried summoning the warriors once again, this time pouring all of her power into the spell. She fused the 3 warriors together into a single body, then unleashed her strongest attack toward Light. But the moment the attack collided with Light's weapon, it shattered completely, as though it had never existed in the first place. Light's power had become something impossible to describe. He slowly approached Sasha with complete confidence, while she attacked him with everything she possessed. But nothing affected him at all, because Light was no longer that weak little boy. He had become a dark monster that no longer understood mercy, a monster born from betrayal, pain, and despair. Then he looked directly into her eyes and asked in a cold and terrifying voice, "What happened to you, Sasha? Where did your pride disappear to? Attack me, or is this truly the limit of your power?" The attacking warrior charged toward Light with a devastating strike, but Light did not even flinch. As for Sasha, she desperately tried summoning the warriors once again, but the shock awaiting her was far worse than she could imagine. The magical flute had been completely destroyed. She froze in place, unable to comprehend what had just happened. She could not believe that a weapon capable of destroying a special class artifact so easily could even exist. But Light looked at her with contempt, and calmly explained that her weapon was nothing more than a low-class item compared to what he possessed, because the weapon he carried belonged to the Supreme Geniasu class. Meanwhile, Luciel had already fallen into complete hysteria from the endless shocks he suffered. He burst into insane laughter while screaming that Light was a liar. First, he claimed his power belonged to the 4/9s level, and now he had invented an entirely new class that should not even exist. Then he hurriedly tried calming Sasha, assuring her that his absolute shield could block any attack no matter how powerful it was. But Light ended his words with terrifying simplicity. Then he attacked directly, and within a single moment, the shield Luciel had proudly boasted about his entire life shattered completely. The two froze in terror. As for Light, he stood before them with overwhelming pride, then asked mockingly, "Is this truly all the elves possess? Is this the limit you have reached?" His presence alone was enough to crush their morale entirely. During that moment, one final idea crossed Luciel's mind. He decided to use teleportation magic and escape immediately. But to his horror, the ability would not activate at all. That was when Light calmly informed him that escaping was impossible, because he had already activated a spell that completely blocked teleportation throughout the tower. Luciel froze in shock. He did not even know such magic existed, and at that moment he realized that every path of escape had already vanished. Even so, he desperately tried clinging to one final hope. He told Light that the White Knights would arrive soon and crush him completely, but Light merely smiled. Then, he pointed behind him. In the next moment, the bodies of the White Knights appeared before Luciel. Their bodies were pierced by swords, while their eyes were filled with defeat and despair. It was a horrifying sight in every sense of the word. And there, Luciel finally understood the truth. There was no longer any path left for escape. Because of that, he completely changed his approach. He began abandoning Sasha and attempted negotiating with Light instead of fighting him. Then he offered to make Light a king instead. He told him that anyone who dreamed of power and control would wish to rule the world itself. He even proposed that they work together to conquer the entire world, not merely the elf kingdom. Then he looked at Light with genuine fear and finally asked, "If you are not a maestro, then who exactly are you?" Light was genuinely surprised by Luciel's words, then calmly told him that this was the very question he himself had been searching for since the beginning. Who exactly was he? At that moment, Luciel immediately began throwing all the blame onto Sasha, claiming that he had nothing to do with what happened, and that he never even knew why the order to assassinate Light had been given in the past. Sasha froze in complete shock. She could not believe that her own fiancé was trying to sell her out so easily. As for Luciel, he did not hesitate for even a second. He openly admitted that he had never loved her from the start, and that he had only been using her for his own benefit. But by then, Light had already grown completely tired of listening to them. At that moment, Aileen asked him to leave the two of them to her. Light agreed immediately and calmly told her to do whatever she wished with those two scum. At first, Luciel tried begging and crying desperately, but after realizing it was useless, he attempted to escape. However, Aileen restrained him with a single movement. Then she slowly began breaking his bones one after another while simultaneously manipulating his mind. It was an unbelievably cruel and horrifying ability. After that, it became Sasha's turn, but she immediately stepped backward and began trying to exploit Light's old kindness, attempting to remind him of the past. She told him that she was the only one who had ever loved and cared about him. Then she asked whether he had forgotten all those memories, but Light answered her with terrifying coldness. He had forgotten nothing. In fact, every single thing she had done remained carved deeply into his memory, because all of it had been fake from the very beginning. Sasha immediately began begging for mercy, while repeatedly calling him by his old name. But Uki exploded with rage and asked Light to leave Sasha to her so she could make her wish for death herself. However, Light refused. He calmly stated that someone as pathetic as her was not even worth wasting their time on. Then, without hesitation, he fired an arrow directly into her leg, exactly as she had done to him in the past. Afterward, he left her to the horrifying abyss creature. And thus, the betrayal of the Union of Races finally came to an end. 6 of them had already fallen, and only a few remained. But at that moment, Light suddenly collapsed onto the ground unconscious from extreme exhaustion. The girls immediately rushed him away for treatment, and it was revealed that the cause was the dark gacha card sealed with 4 seals, which had completely drained all of his energy. Everyone fell into deep sorrow after seeing the condition their master had reached. As for Mai, she angrily scolded all of them, demanding to know how they allowed him to push himself that far. The others silently apologized to her. After 8 full hours, Light finally regained consciousness. Mai immediately felt relieved, then began scolding him again for not taking her along, but Light reassured her calmly and told her he was fine. During that time, Island appeared riding atop the massive legendary dragon before directly attacking the city itself. Then she declared in a terrifying voice that she demanded to meet the queen immediately. She even gave them only 3 minutes. The queen finally appeared alongside the elite White Knights and anxiously asked about her son and the White Knights, but Island answered her with complete coldness. She had already slaughtered all of them. The queen froze in horror. Then she immediately ordered her soldiers to attack Island, but that decision became a complete disaster, because Island, the queen of slaughter, annihilated them effortlessly. Afterward, she stood directly before the queen alone. The queen attempted to escape, but Island restrained her easily and dragged her forward by force. Then she presented her with only 2 choices: either free every enslaved human and forbid slavery among all races forever, or she and her entire kingdom would become food for her monsters. Then Island stood atop the giant dragon's head and announced before everyone in a majestic voice, "From this moment onward, I declare that all humans have the right to live a life without oppression, without slavery, and without humiliation." The queen remained completely stunned. As for the humans, they slowly began gaining their freedom at last. And all of that happened because of one person alone, the Dark King, boy who had been transformed by betrayal and suffering into the nightmare that shook the entire world. And after some time passed, Light finally went to check on Nazuna and the rest of the girls before walking outside to watch the humans finally living with true happiness and freedom. And here the story comes to an end, my dear viewer. We truly hope that you enjoyed it and had a great time watching. If you would like to see a second season, let me know in the comments. Before you close the video, don't forget to press the like button to support us, subscribe to follow more episodes, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any new anime on the channel. Write your opinions in the comments, and we will meet again in new episodes. Goodbye.